Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Grounded. My name is Brian Boyd. Today's topic is humility, of leadership. Before we dive into this episode, I would love to thank everyone for tuning in, whether you've been watching for a while, if this happens to be your first time listening, and I truly pray that God will inspire you to understand the true importance of humility and why it's important not only in leadership, but in every single relationship that we have in our lives. With that being said, everyone, let's go ahead and talk about the humility of leadership. And this is really going off of the episode we did last week, talking about the responsibility of leadership, in which we covered the importance of leaders being able to encourage, inspire, and empower the people that God has placed in their lives. And now this week, we're going to be looking at the other side of this. We're going to be looking at it from terms of younger people who want to be in leadership, people who may will desire to become leaders, but they may not be in the place where they reach their ultimate goal of leading a certain number of people or within a specific area of their lives. And this is something here that regardless of where you are in your leadership journey, you could take something out of it. And to do so, once again, we're going to be looking at First Peter chapter 5. And I believe it starts at verse 5, where Peter begins to open up and he talks about how we should conduct ourselves in a place of leadership. And as I said before, no matter where it is that we're at, whether we're a young leader or we're already an established leader desiring to get to the next level, there's something that each and every person can take from this. And to go ahead and without any further ado, let's look at First Peter chapter 5, and I believe it's verse 5. And Peter starts to say that in the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you, clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. With these verses that I've read, we get an understanding of how younger leaders are supposed to conduct themselves. And while this does bring a very spiritual meaning, because Peter is addressing youth and things that are within the church, it also brings a very literal aspect to our lives even today. And to cover that a bit, we're going to look at the very first point, and it's actually going to come out of the first part of verse 5, where he says to submit yourselves to your elders, all of you, and clothe yourselves with humility towards one another. The thing that I want to look at here is where it says to be submissive to your elders. And one of the things that we come across in our world today in a strenuous amount is that people believe that the concept of submission means that you have dominating control over people, meaning that if you tell somebody to jump, they're supposed to say how high. If you tell them to go left, they're supposed to go left without question. And when you look at this isn't the way that God had never intended it to be, especially with us being believers in his church, because the way that God look at submission is that you willingly do the things that he asks you to do. You're willingly respecting God. You're willingly admiring him, and you love him and respect him enough to do the things that he's leading him to do, because ultimately you know that God has your best interest at hand. And this is what Peter is trying to go and convey the same message to the elders at the time, because if you go back to the episode of last week, the thing that you'll notice Peter talked about is how they're supposed to conduct themselves in a kind fashion, how they're not supposed to be selfish, how they're supposed to be empathetic towards the people that they're leading. And it is only under these conditions that elders and people are supposed to lead their people, and the younger people, or the people that are under them, so to speak, are supposed to follow and respect them and guide them out of this love, out of this interest, out of this humility that they share and have towards them. And this is the thing that we have to understand. And no matter what place we are in leadership, that if we are in a place and we desire to grow, then we should surround ourselves with mentors and elders and people in our lives that will help us get to where we want to be. But we also want to surround ourselves with people in our lives that will be positive influences on people that we do respect, people that we do admire, people that we do desire to learn and grow from. And these are people that will positively influence us in our lives. They're not going to tell us things and demand us to do things that we ultimately should not want to do. And even to go off of the beaten path just a little bit, I kind of rambled a little bit, but the thing that I want to get across is the simple fact that when you're in leadership and you're desiring to get to another place, you should always surround yourself with somebody that's going to be a positive influence on you ultimately. Because the reality of it is, with us being made in the image of God, we don't like necessarily feel like we're under control of somebody. And if you're in one of those positions, or you're in a place where people are openly dominating you or trying to put their own thoughts, beliefs, and ideas onto you and forcing them in that way, then that's somebody that isn't the leader that they're truly meant to be. And in those situations, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but what I will say is that that's not the way that God intended for it to happen. And sometimes, even in my personal life where I've been in situations like this, I had to leave altogether. But of course, that was with prayer, fasting, and getting direction from God openly. So to sum up this point, if you want to be a person in leadership and you desire to get to another level of your life, once again, surround yourself by somebody who's going to be a positive influence on your life, somebody that you can love, somebody that you can respect, somebody that you can admire when they're giving you advice and direction. And then last but not least, you want somebody who's living the life that you desire to have. You know, in the terms of ministry, if you're at a church, you want to be under somebody, you want to be under a pastor or a leader or elder that lives the life that Christ has called them to live. You want to see them do the things that Jesus commanded us to live. You want to see him act in the way that Jesus told us to act. You want to see somebody that's humble in each and everything that they do. And while they do, people have their own flaws and they have the things that they struggle with. Of course, you know, most of the time you should see them live the life that Christ has called them to live. And this is something that should be unwavering, no matter what situation you may be in life, even if that's in business. Because if you want somebody that's successful, that's supposed to teach you how to become successful, then their actions and their habits should line up in the direction that you want to be in. You can't have a financial expert that's telling you how to save money when them themselves can't save a dime. Okay, you don't need people like that in your life. You need people that's walking the walk and talking the talk, that can lead you and guide you and give you advice into where you need to go. Moving right along, though, the second point that I want to touch on here is actually found in the second piece of verse 5, where it says to close yourselves in humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. The thing here that Peter tells us is that if we want to go into a place of elevation in terms of leadership, that we should be able to show humility towards one another, because God shows favor to those who are humble. And for those who may not know what humility is, it simply means that you're modest in your way that you act. You're kind, you're compassionate, you're empathetic towards other people, and you have those same attitudes towards those people because that's who you are as a person. You're modest in the things that you do. You're not a person that has to go around and brag about your accomplishments. You don't have to brag about the things that you're doing. You're somebody who is able to give credit to other people. You love to see other people grow. You love to see them learn. You love to see them being empowered, and you don't have to go in and take the spotlight from them. And that's what Peter is telling us to do right here, because if we have these attitudes and we always seek to help others and empower others and be empathetic towards their feelings and their needs, then God will show favor to us in our own situations. God will be able to exalt us. And that's actually in the Bible itself, because it says that those who humble themselves should be exalted, and those who exalt themselves shall be made abased. And what it's basically saying is that God looks after people who loves to give him credit. They loves to give him the glory for the stuff that he does. He doesn't like people who put themselves on the pedestal, because when you do those things or you place yourselves on those pedestals, then you take away the credit and the things that belong to him. And we see that in very many examples in the Bible. And the biggest one that I could think of off the top of my head was King Nebuchadnezzar, because God had literally gave him all of the kingdoms in the known world at that point. And when all of that was said and done, when he had conquered all of those things due to the power of God, he said that he looked at the kingdom, he looked at all of Babylon, he looked at all of the servants and the things that he had control over, and he said that he did this in his power. And when he did those things, God humbled him in the most interesting way. And I'm not going to go into it today, but if you really want to know that story, and I believe that's in the book of Jeremiah or Isaiah, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I'll definitely post it in the comment section of this particular episode. But definitely check that episode out if you're interested. But the point that I'm trying to make here, to sum it up, is that when you're in leadership or you desire to go to another place, you should always treat the people around you with humility, with empathy, with compassion, because it's through having those attitudes and expressing your will to see others grow is where you will be in a place where God will allow you to grow, because he wants to see people that are able to do those things so that they can go to higher levels and they can have influences and inspire other people to do the same. That's why it's so important, even with us on our walk, that as we begin to grow in Christ and we learn more about his word, that we begin to share our testimonies and to share the gospel with other people so that they too can believe, so that they can have the same experiences and relationships with God that we have, and that one day they can grow up as they learn and grow in Christ to do the same for other people. And that's what life with God is truly all about. It's about being able to learn and grow, and then reaching down and pulling other people up to where you are so that you can continue to evolve and grow together. Moving on, the third point that I want to make here is found in 1 Peter 5, verse 6, and it says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, and he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." The thing here that we learn is that in order for us to be in a place of leadership, for God to use us and to pull us to that next level, we have to humble ourselves under him. And that simply means, it goes back to the first point of being able to submit ourselves to God and being able to willingly learn and grow from him and to pay attention to the things that he's telling us, because it's only through these things, it's only through accepting his direction and his encouragement and sometimes his discipline that we are able to grow and become the people that we're supposed to be. And this is something that should never be understated, no matter what circumstance it is, because out of all of the teachers and mentors and stuff that we can have in our lives, there's no better person that we can have than God himself. Because as I've mentioned so many times on here, as you all know, God is all knowing, he's all powerful, and he's our creator and our father above all else. And it's because he is all of these things, and he knows us so intricately to where he even numbers the hair on our head to those who have hair on their head, that he's able to help us grow and become the people that he ultimately desires us to be. And that is the most important thing when it comes to leadership and those who want to get to upper levels. You have to trust in God with all of your heart. You can't lean on your own understanding. You have to allow him to come into your life and help you grow and teach you to become the person that you're meant to be. And by doing these things, God also wants you to cast your cares, cast your anxieties on him, because he will be able to comfort you in those situations. If you have doubts about being a leader, if you have doubts about your own ability as a person, if you have your own insecurities, maybe things that you don't like about yourself, or even having imposter syndrome, or thinking that you're incapable of doing the things that he's placed on your heart to do, God will willingly take on all of those things, and he will help you progress and help you grow in those situations that you're struggling with. But all of those things come by first humbling yourselves and allowing God to lead you and guide you in the direction that he wants you to partake. And by doing those things, you will become the leader that he has created you so purposely to be. Anyway, with that being said, everyone, to sum up this particular point, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to you learning and growing, you have to give your things to God. You have to give up the things that you want to do. You have to give up your direction, and you have to allow him to truly lead you and guide you. And I'm telling you from personal experience, there have been so many things in life that I tried to do on my own, and even this podcast, but every single time it did not work out and go the way that I intended it to go. And it is because I gave it up to God and I began to let him lead me and guide me that everything is paying off the way that it is. And that when you think about life and everything that we're in, there's nothing that we can't do without God. And especially when it comes to talking about his word and his guidelines and his principles, while we can benefit from them in a practical extent, it's because of God that we get everything else that we need. We may have earthly success, we may have earthly wisdom and health and well-being, but if we don't have God on the other side with all of those things, then we might as well not have nothing at all. And I can tell you, even with my relationship with God, that I've given up a lot of things in life to be with him, and all of those things I wouldn't look back on with a second glance anymore, because I can't tell you just how beautiful this life is that you have with him and the relationship that you grow and learn with him over time. And I truly hope that even through this episode, while we're talking about leadership, that you yourself will be able to get to know God. And this isn't an altar call or nothing like that. It's just me expressing my thanks and my appreciation for him. And I just truly hope that maybe one day you will be able to have they say the same things about him as well. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm starting to ramble a little bit again, but I want to thank you all for tuning into this episode. I truly hope you got something out of learning the concepts of humility and simply learning to, at the end of the day, just be compassionate and loving towards other people, the people that are around you in your immediate circle, and to the people that may be in places that you want to reach, because it's through that humility towards those people and even to the God that we serve that you will become the leader that you're destined to be. And no matter how far you may rise up, no matter how much power and influence you may have over the course of your life, never forget to have humility, because those are the things that will continue bringing you up. Because I'm telling you, the very day that you start to take credit for the things that you've done, for the success and all that you have, and you take God out of it completely, is the day that things begin to turn around, and God will show you in one way or another that he's the reason why you got everything. So at the end of the day, always remain humble. This ain't a fire and brimstone message or nothing like that, but it's just, I'm simply saying what it is. All right. But anyway, I love you all so much. I pray that you got something out of this. And if you did, please be sure to like and share this episode, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode on leadership, or talking about the ways that God has for us. But anyway, I love you all. Take care. Have a blessed night, blessed week, and I will see you all next Wednesday. All right. Brian Boyd signing off. Hey everyone, Brian here once again. Thank you so much for tuning in to Grounded. If these messages have been a blessing to you, please consider donating at thegroundedpodcast.com/donate. Furthermore, if you're looking for books and journals and other resources that will help improve your life, business, and relationships, please be sure to check those out at thegroundedpodcast.com/store. As always, it's been a blessing. I truly love each and every one of you, and I truly hope to see you all once again very soon. All right.